Oh, I would argue that fascism absolutely means capitalism. It's part of the definition.
You need to make the negotiations personal to the man across the table from you. You've got to put a face to the demands in that. That's why you don't have CEOs at the table a lot of times. They don't want to. They can make the decisions in a vacuum, and they don't have to see the consequences of them. That's why they put other people out there to do that for them. But in this case, we did have the CEO there at the table, so he could see what the consequences are, and we had to make him feel the concern and the anxiety that he was going to have to live with. So we, made all kinds of overtones about sabotaging the equipment. Okay? We downloaded a lot of articles off of the internet and laid them around the plant about, this equipment being sabotaged and that equipment. That's all they were. Nobody was doing anything.
You never said anything, did you?
No, just downloaded the articles and laid them out there, okay, for people to read. Hey, look at this article I found, and it wasn't us, it was members that would do that. We had a group of guys that would always end up at the same shopping center, at the same church as the CEO would on Sundays and that, and in the evenings, okay? Wouldn't say nothing, just kind of bump into the guy and say, hey, how you doing? And that's it. How's negotiations going? Or they're not going too well, and then walk off, okay? Got to a point where, the guy became very paranoid, very concerned. When he would walk out into the plant, he would wear a flak jacket and a helmet with a face guard on it because he was afraid of being shot at. You've got to understand whether or not you do have a credible strike ability. Okay? And if you don't, what can you do then to maximize your impact on the employer's operation that can bring about pressure for them to make concessions in your proposals, or to your proposals? You don't have a credible strike threat really within the electric utility industry, in the powerhouses, because employers can idle their units and transport power in from across the country and operate for months and months and months, okay? So that doesn't become a viable threat. However, taking control of their system is a viable threat, okay? If they can't get in there to idle or do things, you can really create some havoc. We had guys strike on the job at our plant down in Kentucky. Basically, the employer essentially paid them for 2 weeks while they couldn't work at all because he thought somebody was trying to sabotage the plant, and he called the FBI in, and they made it a crime scene and conducted a thorough investigation and had to interview everybody, and nobody operated or did anything. Okay? They didn't find nothing after that. Nobody did anything. There's just a lot of literature laying out about industrial sabotage to powerhouses. Downloaded off the internet, and then a strategically placed screwdriver near a turbine rotor that was out of service and everything, but it was just laying there. And that, coupled with all these other kind of insinuations about the possibility, caused the plant manager to overreact, and we got to sit there for 2 weeks. We had riots. We had all kinds of things go on. I had a nice drive back from St. Louis to Iowa on a Sunday afternoon so that I could become a ward of Lee County until my trial. So for inciting a riot that destroyed several police cars and a number of other things. So it was a nice little vacation.
I had a friend who worked in a utility company in Peru. And they were also, it was illegal for them to strike, and they were on strike, okay? But the system was operating, and they had military in there. But they had a lot of cats. And they succeeded in putting cats in powerhouses. And the cats, now don't think about the cats, okay? The cats would run around inside and short out the system and cause power blackouts. And that created enough chaos in the system. This was Lima, the electric utility of Lima, Peru, that they were able to get some negotiating position.
Are there any political parties that do put workers' interests above corporate interests?
Well, yeah, absolutely there are. Okay? I'm going to put a plug in for my Communist Party. We're people that believe that the differences between capital and labor are much different. Our interests are much different. In that labor should essentially own capital, because labor creates capital. It doesn't just create itself. But if you have collective ownership comes through essentially government, because that's where everybody is a collective member of. Capitalism has got such a hold in the world that it's kind of ludicrous to think that you're going to eliminate it. Okay? So what you need to do is rein it in. And there are certain things that, as communists, we believe should be in the public domain. Well, healthcare, we believe, is much better in the public domain, okay, if you have a single-payer system. You know, I wish I could give you a better answer on the nuances or the differences between Trotskyism and Leninism and Marxism. It's kind of ironic that Marx felt that the United States was the place where communism was going to take off. That was going to be the place for the revolution that took place in 1917. It was a place where you have an abundance. It didn't materialize, okay? It did, though, in Russia, and things evolved over time there. I will be having a person speaking on this, though, that can talk more about those nuances, who is much more authoritative in the Communist Party than I am.
So you have to get your membership informed, united, and militant, which implies that you get the best contract deal when you also have a bargaining campaign. In order to get your members to do that, you have to convince them that the group goals are more important than their own individual goals. You know, when you have a crisis, you have an opportunity to introduce a shock, which is a massive change.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
Generally speaking, if you're following the neoliberal playbook, it's one which shifts power dramatically.